The daycare playground was filled with laughter, the soft clang of tricycle wheels over concrete, and the gentle rustle of summer wind in the trees. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, until the K9 named Ranger stopped in his tracks, lowered his nose to the ground, and began to dig with a sudden, urgent fury. At first, the teachers thought he was just being playful, curious about a smell. But what Ranger unearthed wasn't a toy or a bone. As clumps of dirt flew, something hard and metallic began to surface, a rusted, dented lunchbox, half buried under years of soil and time. When the red circle was placed around it for evidence photos later, the air of that moment came flooding back, the sharp gasp from Miss Dana, a 40-year-old caretaker who stumbled backward, her hands covering her mouth in horror. Because what was inside that box would not only silence the playground but also crack open a case that had haunted the town for 15 years. If you believe in the power of second chances, the loyalty of animals, or the kindness that still exists in the world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Justice on Paws. Every story matters, and your support helps bring light to forgotten voices. Ranger wasn't even supposed to be at the daycare that day. The German Shepherd had recently retired from active duty in the K9 unit after a back injury, but his handler, Officer Lena Morales, still took him along for short visits to help him socialize and stay engaged. Lena had been struggling herself, quietly battling burnout, grief, and loneliness after losing her younger brother in an unsolved hit-and-run case years ago. She had poured everything into her job, into Ranger, into making the world feel just a little more right. But lately, even her sharp instincts had dulled. She felt like she was fading, until that moment behind the daycare, when Ranger's sudden urgency ignited something in her again. The lunchbox was sealed shut with rust and caked in years of dirt. When it was finally opened at the station, its contents stunned everyone. Inside were a tiny pink sneaker, a child's tooth wrapped in tissue, and a faded photo of a little girl standing in front of the very same daycare, her name scribbled on the back, Maddie. Age 4. Maddie Holloway had gone missing 15 years ago. Her case had turned cold after months of searching. No body had ever been found. Her family had moved away in grief, tormented by the lack of answers. The case file had gathered dust in a metal drawer, until now. Lena stared at the items in the evidence tray, her breath catching in her throat. Ranger sat beside her, his head resting on her lap, sensing the heaviness in the room. She ran her fingers along the edge of the photo, the little girl's smile frozen in time. Memories surged, briefings from years ago, the wall of missing posters, the desperate eyes of parents clinging to hope. The playground had been searched back then, but no one had dug beneath the old tool shed, which had since been torn down and replaced with a climbing wall. Forensic teams combed the area where Ranger had dug and discovered something even more chilling. Beneath where the lunchbox had been, the soil showed signs of disturbance, bones. Tiny, fragmented remains confirmed by the coroner to be human. The daycare was shut down for the investigation, and the town was sent into a stunned silence. But Lena wasn't about to stop there. This time, she needed closure, not just for the Holloways, but for herself. She spent nights poring through the old files, tracing employees who had worked at the daycare in 2010. Some had moved out of state, others had passed away. But one name kept resurfacing, Craig Denner, a janitor with a quiet demeanor and a record of odd complaints. Nothing conclusive back then, but now with the discovery of Maddie's remains and a clear link to the building's past, he became the prime suspect. He'd vanished shortly after Maddie's disappearance, claiming he had taken a job in another town. With a renewed warrant and tips from the public, Lena and the new task force tracked him down to a trailer in rural Missouri, living under a false name. What followed was a tense standoff, Denner refusing to come out, barking dogs, drawn weapons, a wall of tension pressing against the summer night. But it was Ranger, old injury and all, who sat silently outside the trailer door. Lena believed in him. She knew his presence could calm even the darkest rooms. Eventually, Denner stepped out, eyes hollow, the past written all over his face. He didn't resist arrest. The lunchbox, he confessed, had been buried in panic. Maddie had witnessed something she shouldn't have, he'd meant to frighten her into silence, but the shove had been too hard. He'd hidden her remains beneath the daycare, buried the lunchbox as a twisted memento, and left town before the truth could catch up. The town grieved again, but this time, they also healed. A memorial was built in Maddie's name, and her family, brought back by the news, finally had the answer they had prayed for every day since she disappeared. Their case had haunted the community like a whisper in the dark, but Ranger, the retired K9 with a nose for justice, had brought it back into the light. Lena stood at the memorial one morning, Ranger sitting proudly beside her. The sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden glow over the flowers, the toys left by other children, and a framed photo of Maddie. Lena closed her eyes and breathed in deeply. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was carrying the world on her shoulders alone. Ranger leaned gently into her side, a quiet reminder that healing sometimes comes from the most unexpected places. To this day, the playground is open again, brighter and safer than ever. The children laugh, unaware of the tragedy once hidden beneath their feet. But parents and teachers remember. They remember Maddie. They remember the miracle dog who found her. And Lena? She remembers why she joined the force in the first place, not just to protect, but to care. If this story touched your heart, even just a little, please take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Justice on Paws. Help us honor the bond between humans and animals, and ensure stories like Maddie's are never forgotten again.